The algorithms collapsed like dominoes across the trading floor monitors, red warnings bleeding through every screen. CEO Renata Chen's fingers trembled against the mahogany conference table as another billion vanished into digital smoke. The emergency board meeting had stretched past midnight, voices sharp with blame, when the janitor entered through the service door. His mop bucket squeaked once against marble. The Fibonacci sequence. The words escaped before Nate could stop them, barely a whisper as he stared at the cascading numbers. They're running it backwards. Every head in the boardroom turned. Landon Pierce, the vice president of operations, smiled like a card player holding aces. Renata's exhausted eyes focused on the man in the gray uniform, the one who emptied their trash and polished their ambitions away each night. Did the janitor just offer market analysis? Landon's voice dripped honey over broken glass. The mop handle trembled in Nate's grip. In his pocket, an empty prescription bottle pressed against his ribs. Eliza's medication, the one insurance wouldn't cover, the one that cost more than he made in 3 months. He should have stayed silent, should have remained invisible like every other night for the past 2 years. But the pattern was so obvious, it burned. The boardroom's recycled air tasted of desperation and expensive cologne. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sparkled below like scattered coins, each light a fortune someone else controlled. "I'm sorry," Nate said, lowering his head, playing the part they expected. "I'll just—" "No!" Renata's voice cut through. She'd built this company from a borrowed desk and stubborn brilliance, and right now she'd listen to anyone who might stop the hemorrhaging. "What did you mean about the sequence?" The other board members shifted, uncomfortable at acknowledging the help. Margaret Walsh from legal clutched her tablet tighter. CFO Davidson's mouth pressed into a line that calculated class boundaries. Nate set down his mop, careful not to let the handle clatter. On the largest screen, numbers cascaded in patterns that made his fingers itch for a keyboard he hadn't touched in 5 years. "The sell orders," he said, voice steady despite Landon's stare burning holes through his uniform. "They're following a reverse Fibonacci pattern, but offset by the golden ratio. It's not random. Someone's engineering this crash." Silence spread like spilled water. Renata leaned forward. "You can see that? Just by looking?" The prescription bottle shifted in Nate's pocket as he stepped closer to the screen. Eliza would need her next dose tomorrow morning. 7 years old, and she took her pills without complaint, even when they made her sick. Even when Daddy had to choose between medicine and electricity. "The pattern breaks here." His finger traced air in front of the monitor. "Third recursion. Whoever wrote this made a mistake." "Janitors don't understand recursive algorithms," Landon said, but something flickered behind his smile. "Recognition? Fear?" Margaret Walsh cleared her throat, fingers dancing across her tablet. "Actually, according to the security logs—" "Thank you, Margaret, that won't be necessary." Landon interrupted. The head of security, Marcus Webb, had been silent until now, studying Nate with the careful attention of someone paid to notice details. His hand moved to his earpiece, listening to something only he could hear. "Ma'am," Webb addressed Renata, "we should continue this privately. The Prometheus incident." Nate's hand froze halfway to the screen. That name, that specific combination of syllables he'd buried beneath 2 years of industrial disinfectant and practiced invisibility. Renata's eyes sharpened. The Prometheus incident was 5 years ago. Different company, different city. She paused, studying Nate's rigid posture. "Unless—" The mop handle clattered against marble. The executive elevator descended in silent judgment, each floor marking another rung down the corporate ladder. Nate clutched his supplies cart as Renata Chen stood 3 feet away, her reflection fractured across polished steel doors. Neither spoke about what just happened in the boardroom, how a janitor had seen what her entire analytics team missed. The building operated on invisible hierarchies. Executive floors required special keycards, their marble corridors wide enough for egos and ambitions. Service levels squeezed through concrete veins, fluorescent lights flickering like tired eyes. Nate had learned every pathway, every forgotten conference room where executives held conversations they believed no one else could hear. His keycard, standard custodial access, somehow opened doors it shouldn't. It had promised to fix the glitch for 6 months now. They never did. 72 hours, Renata said suddenly. "That's how long before the quarterly report, before the board votes no confidence." The elevator chimed. 32nd floor, Nate's floor, The one where invisible people did invisible work. Your algorithm observation, she continued, not looking at him. Could you elaborate? The doors opened to industrial beige and the smell of floor wax. This wasn't her world. Renata followed him into the service corridor, her Louboutin heels clicking against scuffed linoleum. She moved like someone who'd forgotten what it felt like to be out of place, shoulders straight, despite exhaustion pulling at her edges. I won't authorize that transfer, she'd told Landon earlier, back when Nate was supposedly just cleaning. Not without verification. Now, watching her navigate his world of supply closets and break rooms, he understood. She'd built Safeguard Financial by questioning everything, verifying twice. The analysts whispered about her rise, Stanford dropout who'd turned $50,000 in seed money into a billion-dollar firm. They didn't whisper about how she still checked every major transaction personally, still read code despite having hundreds of programmers. The pattern, Nate said, rolling his cart past a vending machine that only took exact change. Someone's using your own trading algorithm against you, but modified. Her phone buzzed. Landon's name flashed across the screen. She declined the call. In the break room's harsh light, Nate pulled out the crumpled hospital notice. Final warning stamped in red across payment plan details. Eliza needed the surgery within 2 weeks, or the window would close. The specialist in Seattle was their last hope, the only one who'd operated on her specific condition successfully. He folded it quickly, but Renata had already seen. Family, she asked, surprising him with the gentleness. Daughter. 7. The words came out rough. It's complicated. Through the narrow window, the city sprawled below. Somewhere out there, Eliza was sleeping at Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment, probably curled up with the stuffed elephant he'd won at a carnival the week before everything changed, before stocks and algorithms meant survival instead of success. The third recursion, Renata prompted, pulling them back to safer ground. You mentioned a flaw. Landon's shadow passed by the break room door. Neither of them moved until his footsteps faded. The vending machine hummed between them as Nate made his choice. Stay silent. Stay safe. Keep mopping until Eliza's surgery became impossible, or speak and risk everything he'd hidden for 2 years. Your algorithm has a fatal flaw at the third recursion, he said finally. Whoever's attacking you knows this. They're counting on it. Renata's expression shifted, puzzle pieces clicking together. How does a janitor understand derivatives and recursive programming? The question hung between them like a blade. In the hallway, a security camera blinked red. Nate wondered if Webb was watching, if those background checks Landon mentioned were already spinning through databases, searching for who he used to be. Maybe, he said carefully, the same way a Stanford dropout becomes a CEO, by seeing patterns others miss. Something passed across her face, recognition of a kindred outsider. She pulled out her phone, typed quickly. I'm assigning you to a special project, night audit team, cleaning the 38th floor. She met his eyes. The secure server room. I trust you understand the sensitivity? The 38th floor, where the real numbers lived, where the algorithm's heart beat behind biometric locks. Nate nodded, understanding the test hidden in the offer. When do I start? Tonight. Landon's flying to Singapore in 6 hours. We have that long to figure out what he's planning. The prescription bottle pressed against his ribs. Eliza needed him safe, but she also needed him to be the father who did the right thing, even when it cost everything. I'll need my regular cart, he said. To look normal. Renata almost smiled. Of course. Wouldn't want to break protocol. As she left, her perfume lingered, something expensive that probably cost more than his monthly rent. But beneath it, he caught something else. Fear. The kind that came from realizing your fortress had been built on sand. The vending machine released a can of coffee with a metallic thud. Nate didn't pick it up. He was too busy calculating recursions and remembering why he'd sworn never to touch code again. The call came at 3 a.m. while Nate was reviewing access logs in the server room. His supervisor's voice crackled through the industrial speakerphone. Monroe, get to HR, now. The 38th floor felt different at night, servers humming their electronic prayers, LED lights pulsing like digital heartbeats. Nate had found what he was looking for. Time-stamped discrepancies in the security footage, gaps where someone had edited the recordings. But HR at 3 a.m. meant only one thing. He saved the files to a flash drive hidden inside a bottle of cleaning solution. The service elevator descended toward the second floor. each level ticking away like a countdown. Through grimy windows, he glimpsed other night workers, security guards walking rounds, office cleaners pushing carts like his. The invisible army that kept the corporate world spinning. HR's waiting room smelled of stale coffee and disappointment. Landon Pierce sat behind the desk that usually belonged to Jennifer from Benefits, his smile sharp enough to cut glass. Nate Monroe, Landon said, drawing out each syllable. Or should I check what other names you might be using? The security breach accusation came wrapped in corporate legalese. But the threat was clear. Someone had accessed restricted files using a janitor's keycard. The timestamp matched when Nate was supposedly cleaning the executive conference room. Funny thing about security footage, Landon continued, sliding a tablet across the desk. It shows you entering areas you weren't authorized for. That's termination. Immediate. No severance. On the screen, grainy footage showed someone in a janitor's uniform accessing the server room. Wrong build, wrong gate, but in black and white. Who could tell the difference? Unless, Landon added, you want to explain what Ranata Chen wanted with you earlier, why she's suddenly interested in the help. The trap snapped shut with elegant precision. Refuse to talk, lose his job and Eliza's surgery, cooperate, betray the one person trying to stop this hemorrhaging. Check his background, Landon told someone on his phone, eyes never leaving Nate's face. Nobody's that clean, especially not in Seattle. Seattle. The word hit like ice water. 5 years buried, and Landon had already found the thread. In his pocket, the hospital notice crinkled. Monday morning, they'd review Eliza's case. If he couldn't prove employment, prove insurance, prove he could handle the payment plan, they'd remove her from the surgery list. I was cleaning, Nate said finally. Check the supply logs. Every chemical signed out, every trash bag accounted for. Meticulous, Landon mused. Almost like someone used to handling detailed documentation. Technical documentation, perhaps? Through the window, a police car's lights swept past. For a moment, Nate wondered if Landon had called them already. The Seattle incident had involved federal investigators, SEC inquiries, reputations destroyed by association. Even though he'd been cleared, vindicated, the stain remained. His old business card, the one he kept meaning to throw away, sat in his wallet like a confession. Elias Thorne, Chief Technology Officer, Quantum Systems. The name of a man who'd trusted the wrong partner, who'd watched his life's work twisted into a weapon against the very market he'd tried to protect. HR investigation starts Monday. Landon continued. You're suspended pending review. No building access, no final paycheck until cleared. Monday. After Eliza's review. After the surgery window closed, the door opened. Ranata Chen entered, still wearing the same clothes from 12 hours ago, exhaustion replaced by cold fury. Interesting timing for an HR meeting, she said, especially since Jennifer from HR is home with the flu. Landon's smile flickered. Someone had to handle the security breach. Yes, someone did. She turned to Nate, and for a moment, he saw past the CEO armor to something raw. Which is why I've assigned Mr. Monroe to a special audit team. My authorization, unless you're suggesting I can't manage my own company's security. The challenge hung between them. Landon questioning her judgment meant questioning her leadership, exactly what he needed for Monday's board vote. You have no idea who you're defending, Landon said quietly, the kind of damage someone like him could do with access to our systems. Then it's fortunate, Ranata replied, that I've asked Marcus Webb to personally oversee the audit. Full transparency. Unless you object to our head of security doing his job, check and countercheck. Nate watched them maneuver around each other like pieces on a board only they could see. Except he'd seen this game before. In Seattle. Right before everything burned. 48 hours, Landon said finally. Until my Singapore trip concludes. Then we review everything, including your judgment in trusting janitors with server access. He left without another word. The door clicked shut with mechanical finality. Renata's shoulders sagged for exactly 2 seconds before straightening again. He knows something about you. It wasn't a question. Everyone has a past, Nate said carefully. Yes, but not everyone's past involves whatever made a CTO become a janitor. She studied him with eyes that had built an empire on reading people. I don't care who you were. I care about who you are now. Can you stop what's happening to my company? The flash drive pressed against his palm inside the cleaning bottle, evidence that could safeguard financial or destroy what remained of his carefully constructed invisibility. The Singapore trip. he said instead of answering. It's not about business development. How do you know? Because the timestamp gaps in your security footage match exactly with his travel schedule. Someone's been practicing. Her phone buzzed. The board was calling an emergency session. Monday's confidence vote moved to tomorrow if the bleeding didn't stop. 24 hours, she said. That's all we have. As she turned to leave, Nate made his choice. The algorithm attacking you. It has a signature. I've seen it before. She paused at the door. In Seattle, right before quantum systems collapsed, understanding dawned across her face. You're him. I'm a janitor, he interrupted. Who needs this job to save his daughter? Nothing more. But they both knew that was no longer true. The game had started, and this time, Nate couldn't afford to lose. The cleaning cart rolled through Safeguard's data center like a Trojan horse. Inside spray bottles and paper towel rolls, Nate had hidden USB drives, a portable code scanner, and a tablet running diagnostic software. The servers hummed their midnight chorus while he worked, each pass of the mop bringing him closer to the truth. Marcus Webb stood by the door, arms crossed. CEO says, your special assignment. I say, you're still just pushing a mop. Both can be true, Nate replied, wringing gray water into the bucket. The head of security hadn't survived 20 years in corporate warfare by trusting easily, but he also hadn't survived by ignoring patterns. And the pattern here stank worse than industrial disinfectant. On the main terminal, hidden behind his cart, Nate's scanner worked through transaction logs, every trade, every algorithm adjustment, every microsecond decision that had bled billions from Safeguard's portfolios. The pattern was elegant in its destruction, like watching a master architect design a building's collapse. 48 hours until Landon returns, Webb said, checking his watch. You planning to mop your way to answers? The scanner beeped softly. Match found. Nate's phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Rodriguez. Eliza couldn't sleep. The medicine made her nauseous again, and she kept asking when Daddy would be home. The attached photo showed her at the kitchen table, crayons scattered, drawing something with fierce concentration. He zoomed in. She'd drawn him as a superhero, cape made of a towel, mop transformed into a mighty staff. At the bottom, in shaky 7-year-old handwriting, "My daddy saves people." The irony cut deep. While he hunted digital ghosts, his daughter believed he was exactly what he pretended to be. Just a janitor, just a father trying to make ends meet. You have kids, Webb? Nate asked, tucking the phone away. 2 boys, grown now. The security chief's expression softened a fraction. They used to draw pictures too, usually of me arresting bad guys. Were you? A cop? Marine? Then private security. Then this. Webb gestured at the servers. Protecting money instead of people. Though sometimes they're the same thing. On the terminal, another match appeared. The attacking algorithm's signature, hidden beneath layers of market noise. But something else too. A secondary pattern, almost invisible unless you knew what to look for. Your boy's proud of what you do. Nate kept his voice casual, mopping closer to the terminal. They understand duty. Webb paused. That why you're really here? Making your daughter proud? The question hung between them. Before Nate could answer, his scanner isolated something that made his blood freeze. Embedded in the attack code, a digital fingerprint he recognized. Not Landon's. Someone else. Someone who shouldn't exist anymore. Renata appeared at 2:30 a.m., having shed her boardroom armor for jeans and a Stanford hoodie. The transformation made her look younger, hungrier, like the dropout who'd built an empire from pure will. Show me, she said simply. Nate pulled up the data on a secure tablet, careful to keep his fingerprints off the main system. The attack algorithm. It's not just bleeding money, it's funneling it. Small amounts, thousands of microtransactions, all flowing to offshore accounts. Embezzlement. Her jaw tightened. How much? Enough to trigger a federal investigation when discovered. Enough to destroy confidence in your leadership. She studied the flow patterns, mind working through implications. This is why Landon wants me out. Clear the path for a hostile takeover while the stock crashes. Except, Nate highlighted a section of code. This signature, it's not his. Whose then? He hesitated. In Seattle, asking that question had cost him everything. But Eliza's picture burned in his pocket. My daddy saves people. Someone I used to know. Someone who supposedly died in federal custody 5 years ago. Renata's eyes sharpened. The quantum systems collapse. You were there. I designed the protection algorithm. Someone else turned it into a weapon. The words tasted like ash. Adrian Wolf, my business partner, my friend.
I'm the one who testified against you?
The one who made sure I looked guilty while he disappeared with $50 million in investor funds. Nate met her gaze. If this code signature is real, if he's alive and working with Landon, then this isn't just about Safeguard. She completed the thought. It's about you. Webb's radio crackled. Movement on 37. Someone's accessing the executive files. They moved as one toward the service elevator. Nate grabbed his cart, camouflage and weapon combined. In the harsh fluorescent light, Renata's face showed the strain of command, of knowing that trusting the wrong person meant losing everything. "Why didn't you run?" she asked as the elevator climbed. "When you saw Landon knew about Seattle, why stay?" Nate thought of Eliza's surgery, of Mrs. Rodriguez watching her overnight, of promises made to a dying wife about being the father their daughter deserved, because running means they win. Again. The elevator dinged. 37th floor. Through the closing doors, they glimpsed a shadow disappearing around the corner. But on the ground, reflecting the emergency lighting, lay something that changed everything. A cufflink. Platinum and sapphire. The kind given to Quantum Systems board members at their last shareholders meeting. The kind that should have been evidence in federal custody. The kind Adrian Wolf had worn the day he destroyed Nate's life. "He's here," Nate whispered. "He's been here all along." Webb's hand moved to his weapon. Renata pulled out her phone, then stopped. Who could she call? Who could she trust when ghosts were walking her halls? 23 hours, she said instead. "That's what we have left." The cufflink glinted like a promise, or a threat. In the server room below, algorithms continued their digital feast, each transaction bringing them closer to the point of no return. Nate picked up the evidence with a paper towel from his cart. Some stains he'd learned never really came clean. The emergency board meeting convened at 7 a.m. sharp. 12 faces around polished mahogany, each calculating the price of loyalty versus survival. Nate stood in the corner with his mop bucket, invisible in plain sight, while Landon commanded the room like a conductor orchestrating disaster. "Ladies and gentlemen," Landon announced, gesturing to the screen showing Safeguard's hemorrhaging portfolios, "I've discovered something disturbing about our CEO's judgment." He clicked a remote. Security footage filled the screen. Nate in the server room, hands on keyboards he shouldn't touch. "She's given a janitor, access to our most sensitive systems." His voice dripped calculated outrage. "The same janitor who was present during last night's breach attempt. Would anyone like to guess his real identity?" The room shifted, uncomfortable energy rippling through expensive suits. Margaret Walsh from legal gripped her pen tighter. CFO Davidson's face went pale. "His name is Elias Thorne." Landon paused for effect. "Former CTO of Quantum Systems, the man responsible for the algorithm that destroyed $30 billion in market value." Nate's hand tightened on the mop handle. Each word was perfectly chosen, each half-truth wrapped around a poison core. In the corner of his vision, he caught Renata's micro-expression, not surprise, but calculation. "Should we ask the janitor for investment advice too?" Landon's smile could have curdled milk. "Or should we discuss why our CEO is harboring a suspected financial terrorist?" During the scheduled break, Nate escaped to the supply closet. His hands shook as he pulled out the cleaning schedule, but not to check his rounds. Hidden in the mundane grid of tasks and times, he'd been writing something else. Code, line by line, fragment by fragment, building a key to unlock what Landon and Adrian had built. The Prometheus algorithm had been his masterpiece. Designed to protect markets from manipulation, to spot patterns before they became avalanches, Adrian had corrupted it, weaponized it, but every weapon had a kill switch if you knew where to look. He penciled another line between third-floor bathroom and executive suite vacuum. To anyone else, it looked like scheduling notes. To him, it was salvation written in cipher. His phone buzzed. Another text from the hospital. "Final reminder about Monday's appointment. Please confirm insurance status." 24 hours had become 18. The board would vote this afternoon unless something changed. Renata needed proof, not just accusations. And that proof lived behind firewalls that would take days to crack legally. Unless. He stared at the code hidden in his cleaning schedule. The emergency board meeting protocol, if triggered, it would freeze all transactions, lock down all systems, display everything on the main boardroom screens for SEC compliance. It would also, if modified correctly, execute any code embedded in the display sequence. One chance, one shot at reversing the algorithm before Adrian and Landon complete their plan. The elevator dinged. Marcus Webb entered the supply closet, filling the small space with authority and aftershave. "Elias Thorne," he said quietly. "I ran deep background after our talk. Federal investigation file, SEC testimony, the works." Nate didn't move, couldn't move. Funny thing about that file. Webb closed the door behind him. "Your testimony, the parts they sealed? You predicted this exact scenario. A corrupted Prometheus being used for market manipulation. You named potential targets. Let me guess. Safeguard was on the list. Number 3. Webb studied him. You also named who you thought would try it. Adrian Wolf, if he survived prison. Except he died in custody, right? Heart attack. Closed casket funeral. Bodies can be misidentified. Deaths can be faked." Nate met his gaze. "Especially with $50 million to spread around." "That's what I thought." Webb pulled out a folder. "So I did some digging. Guard who found Wolf's body. Retired early. Coroner who signed the certificate. Moved to Costa Rica. Federal prosecutor who handled the case. Died in a car accident last year." The pattern was clear. Everyone who could verify Adrian Wolf's death was gone or bought. "He knows." The words escaped before Nate could stop them. "Landon knows who I am because Adrian told him. They're working together." "Then we stop them together." Webb's hand extended. "I spent 20 years protecting people. I'm not stopping now." They shook hands in the supply closet that smelled of industrial soap and secrets. Another ally, another risk. Another step toward the confrontation Nate had avoided for 5 years. Back in the boardroom, Landon was building to his climax. Charts showed Safeguard's death spiral. Projections promised bankruptcy within days unless radical action was taken. "I've prepared acquisition documents," he announced. "Viridian Capital has offered to buy our assets at 20 cents on the dollar. It's that or complete collapse." Renata stood slowly. Viridian Capital, incorporated 2 weeks ago in the Caymans. Beneficial ownership hidden behind shell companies. She smiled without warmth. "Due diligence is a wonderful thing. The offer is legitimate. The offer is from you." She cut him off. "You and whoever's pulling your strings." The room erupted, board members shouting, accusations flying. In the chaos, Nate noticed something. Landon's hand kept touching his pocket, the same nervous gesture Adrian used to make when running a con. Check the trigger, make sure the detonator was ready. "Enough!" Davidson slammed the table. "We vote now. No confidence in CEO Renata Chen, effective immediately." "Seconded," Margaret Walsh added reluctantly. One by one, hands rose. The coup proceeded with corporate efficiency. Only 2 members hesitated, old guard who remembered when business meant building, not destroying. Motion carries. Landon's triumph rang hollow in the sterile air. "Miss Chen, you have 1 hour to clear your office." As security moved to escort her out, Renata's eyes found Nate. A silent message passed between them. The game wasn't over. It had just begun. Because in his pocket, Nate carried the modified keycard Webb had given him. Access to everything. And on his cleaning schedule, hidden in plain sight, was the code that would turn Prometheus from weapon to shield. The elevator doors closed on Renata's departure. Landon turned to the remaining board, already dismissing the janitor still mopping in the corner. "Now, let's discuss the transition. I'll need full system access to stabilize our portfolios." Nate pushed his cart toward the door, each step measured. 18 hours until Eliza's deadline. 4 hours until Landon's plan reached irreversibility, but only minutes until the real Elias Thorne stepped out of the shadows. The elevator waited. The 38th floor beckoned, and somewhere in the digital ether, Adrian Wolf was about to learn that some ghosts refused to stay buried. The 38th floor server room thrummed with electronic life. Nate stood before the main terminal, Webb beside him, as lines of code cascaded across multiple screens. The modified keycard had worked perfectly. They were in. "Security log confirms," Webb read from his tablet, voice carrying official weight. "Access granted 1532 hours to Elias Thorne, former Chief Technology Officer, Quantum Systems. Biometric match confirmed. Federal database cross-reference verified." The words hung in the filtered air. 5 years of hiding, dissolved in a timestamp. "That's your name," Webb continued, protocol demanding clarity. "Your real name." "Yes. No more pretense. No more invisible janitor. Nate's, Elias's." Fingers moved across the keyboard with muscle memory that 2 years of mopping couldn't erase. The Prometheus interface bloomed across the screen, beautiful and terrible in its complexity. Jesus, Webb breathed. You actually built this thing. I built the protection protocol. Adrian built the rest. Elias pulled up transaction logs following money like digital breadcrumbs. Look here, every stolen dollar, every manipulated trade, all funneling to accounts controlled by... He stopped. The beneficial ownership chain led to a name that shouldn't exist. Phoenix Holdings, Adrian's old code name from their Stanford days. The SEC database confirmed what Elias already knew. Adrian Wolf, officially deceased, had been busy. Shell companies layered like Russian dolls, each hiding the next, all leading back to a ghost who'd stolen $50 million and faked his death to spend it. SEC filing shows Prometheus algorithm patent Webb read, following proper procedure. Registered to Elias Thorne designation Alpha Prime clearance. That's the highest level of financial system access. Had past tense. Elias highlighted code segments. They revoked it after Seattle, but the algorithm still recognizes you because Adrian couldn't change the core architecture without breaking it. He needed my fingerprint in the code to make it work. A bitter smile crossed Elias's face. Even in betrayal, he needed me. Through the glass partition, they could see the executive floor. Landon's celebration continued, champagne and hostile takeover documents. He had no idea his partner was about to burn him too. There, Elias isolated a subroutine. The kill switch, but it's incomplete. Adrian removed the execution protocol. Can you rebuild it? I already have. He pulled out the cleaning schedule showing Webb the code hidden in mundane tasks. I just need to upload it when their guard is down. Renata's voice crackled through Webb's radio. She'd refused to leave the building, holed up in the archived records room where board members rarely ventured. Status? She asked. We have confirmation. Webb replied. Elias Thorne identity verified. Prometheus creator confirmed. He's found proof of embezzlement leading to Adrian Wolf. Wolf is dead. Wolf is Phoenix Holdings, Elias said, leaning toward the radio. He's been planning this for 5 years. Safeguard was always the target. You were just successful enough to be worth destroying. Silence. Then, can you stop it? I can reverse it. Every stolen dollar, every manipulated trade. But I need board authorization to execute emergency protocols. I'm no longer CEO, but you're still majority shareholder. And under Section 7 of the corporate charter, any board member can trigger emergency review if financial crimes are suspected. More silence. In the background, papers rustling. I'm looking at the charter now, she said finally. It requires physical presence in the boardroom. They'll stop me. Not if they're distracted. Elias checked the time. 12 hours until Eliza's deadline. 3 hours until Adrian's final transfer. I need 15 minutes. Can you give me that? I'll give you 20. Her voice carried steel wrapped in silk. Mr. Thorne, thank you for not being what they said you were. The connection ended. Elias turned back to the screens, fingers flying. Every line of code was a word in his defense. Every function was a step toward redemption. She called you Thorne, Webb observed. She called me what I am. Finally. The pattern emerged like a photograph developing in chemical bath. Adrian hadn't just stolen from Safeguard. He'd used it as a test run. 12 other companies showed similar attacks, all smaller, all practice for this moment. But something else caught Elias's attention. The final transfer wasn't scheduled for 3 hours. It was scheduled for 30 minutes. He moved up the timeline. His hands flew across keys, chasing disappearing funds. He knows I'm here. As if summoned, a message appeared on screen. Text only, untraceable. Hello, old friend. I wondered when you'd show up. Elias's blood froze. Adrian was watching. Had been watching all along. Another message. Landon thinks he's getting rich. He's just another patsy, like you were. Can he stop us? Webb asked. He can try. Elias initiated the upload sequence. But he made one mistake. What's that? He taught me everything he knows. His fingers found the rhythm code flowing like music. But I never taught him everything I know. The Prometheus kill switch began its digital awakening. Across the city, in a location hidden by proxies and paranoia, Adrian Wolf realized his perfect plan had one fatal flaw. He'd left Elias Thorne alive. Webb's phone rang. Renata's distraction had begun. Fire alarms throughout the executive floor, sprinklers soaking million-dollar suits, board members evacuating in undignified chaos. 12 minutes, Webb reported. Make them count. Elias cracked his knuckles, a gesture from his CTO days. On the screen, his code went to war with Adrian's. Two philosophies clashing in silicon and electricity. Protection versus predation. Creation versus destruction. The janitor was gone. Elias Thorne had work to do, and 7 floors below, a little girl's drawing of a superhero daddy was about to become prophecy. The code war raged across 12 screens. Each line Elias uploaded, Adrian countered. Each firewall breach spawned 2 more. The kill switch integration crawled forward, 70%, 75%, stuttering at 80%. Then Adrian played his ace. The screens flickered. A new message appeared, this time with an attachment. A photograph. Eliza, outside her school. Taken yesterday. I know about the surgery. Adrian's message read, amazing what hospitals will tell collection agencies. Shame if her appointment got rescheduled. Elias's hands froze. Webb grabbed his shoulder. He's bluffing, trying to break your concentration. He's not bluffing. Elias's voice came out strangled. He never bluffs. Another photo. Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment building. The window circled in red. Eliza's temporary bedroom. Stand down, or I make some calls. Hospital administrators are so understanding about paperwork errors. The upload stalled at 82%. In the boardroom below, Renata's distraction was ending. Security had discovered the false alarm. Landon would return any moment. Everything Elias had rebuilt, everything he'd sacrificed, balanced against his daughter's life. He closed his eyes, remembering. Eliza in the hospital bed after her last seizure, machines keeping her stable. The doctor's careful words, temporal window, specialized procedure, one chance at normal life. The way she'd squeezed his hand and said, I'm brave like Mommy was. The insurance forms, the payment plans. 2 years of mopping floors and emptying trash, each paycheck stretched to breaking. All for Monday's appointment. All for her chance. I can't, he whispered. I can't lose her. But on the screen, evidence mounted. Adrian's virus wasn't just stealing from Safeguard. The code revealed a darker pattern. Pension funds, retirement accounts, college savings. Ordinary people losing everything while algorithms fed on their futures. How many other daughters? Webb asked quietly. How many other families destroyed if we don't stop this? Elias opened his eyes, saw his reflection in the black screen. Not the janitor, not the disgraced CTO, but a father facing an impossible choice. The cleaning schedule lay beside the keyboard, his backup code, handwritten between shift assignments. Primitive, but untraceable. Adrian couldn't counter what he couldn't see coming. He has to be close, Elias said suddenly, to take those photos, to respond this fast. He's in the building. The decision crystallized like code compiling. Elias pulled out his phone, typed a message to Mrs. Rodriguez. Keep Eliza inside. Don't answer the door for anyone. Then to Renata. I need 5 more minutes. And a witness. Done, came her reply. He turned to Webb. When I was nobody, when I was just pushing a mop, my daughter drew me as a hero. His fingers found the keyboard again. Maybe it's time to stop disappointing her. The manual input began. Each line typed instead of uploaded, each function entered by hand. Slower but unstoppable. Adrian could block automated uploads, but he couldn't stop human determination. You're insane. Adrian's message flashed. You know what I'm capable of. I know exactly what you're capable of. Elias said aloud, knowing Adrian was listening. That's why you have to be stopped. 90%. 95%. The boardroom doors burst open. Landon entered, suit still damp from sprinklers, face twisted in rage. Behind him, building security formed a wall. Arrest him, Landon ordered, pointing at the glass partition. Corporate espionage, sabotage, whatever it takes. But Renata stood by the main presentation screen, charter documents in hand, Margaret Walsh beside her, recording everything on her tablet for legal documentation. Section 7 Emergency Review, Renata announced. Financial crimes investigation in progress. All board members are required to witness. You're not CEO. I'm majority shareholder, and according to the charter you clearly never read. That gives me standing. Through the glass, Elias met Landon's eyes. The VP's face went white as recognition hit. Not the janitor, the architect of everything he'd tried to steal. Now, Renata commanded. Elias hit enter. The boardroom screens exploded with data, transaction logs, account numbers, theft patterns spreading like digital wildfire. But more than numbers, faces. Photos of families whose retirements vanished, children whose college funds evaporated, real people behind the statistics. And at the center, a name blazing in red, Phoenix Holdings, Adrian Wolf, deceased. Except the transactions continued past his death date, past his funeral, right up to 30 seconds ago. "This is impossible," Landon stammered. "He's dead. I went to his funeral." "Closed casket," Elias said through the intercom. Convenient, wasn't it? The kill switch reached full activation. Across the network, the Prometheus algorithm reversed its flow. Stolen funds began returning home, following breadcrumbs Elias had coded into the original architecture. Safety protocols he'd built 5 years ago finally serving their purpose. But Adrian had one more card to play. Every screen went black. Then a single line of text. "See you soon, Elias." A. The lights went out. In the darkness, Elias heard running footsteps, breaking glass, shouts of confusion. When emergency power kicked in seconds later, Landon was gone. And on Elias's phone, a text from an unknown number. "Parking garage, level B3. Come alone or Monday never comes for Eliza." The trap was set. The real confrontation, 5 years in the making, was about to begin. "Go," Webb said. "I'll handle things here." Elias stood slowly, feeling the weight of everything, past and future, father and fighter, protector and prey. Time to finish what Seattle started. Level B3 stretched like a concrete cavern, emergency lights casting long shadows between expensive cars. Elias descended the stairwell, each step echoing his heartbeat. No security cameras down here. Adrian had chosen well. "You came." The voice emerged from behind a black Tesla. Adrian Wolf stepped out, looking exactly as he had 5 years ago. Same calculated smile, same predator eyes. Death hadn't aged him. "You're supposed to be dead. Death is just another algorithm, Elias. You find the variables, manipulate the outcome." Adrian circled slowly, maintaining distance. 50 million buys a lot of variables. Between them, the air tasted of motor oil and betrayal. Adrian held up a phone showing hospital admission forms. One click to delete, one call to destroy. "Your kill switch was elegant," Adrian continued. "I especially admired the manual input. Very analog, very you. It's over. The money's returning. The FBI will trace every transaction." "Will they?" Adrian smiled wider. "Check your phone." Elias looked. News alerts flooded in. Safeguard stock in freefall. SEC trading halts, panic selling across markets. The kill switch had reversed the theft, but triggered something worse. "You didn't just activate Prometheus's defense protocol," Adrian explained. "You activated all of it. Every market maker using our algorithm is now in full protective mode. They're freezing assets, blocking trades, creating the very crash we pretended to engineer." The trap's elegance hit like ice water. Adrian hadn't just wanted money, he'd wanted chaos, and Elias had delivered it. The board will see you triggered a market collapse. Again. Elias Thorne, the man who destroyed quantum systems, just took down Safeguard Financial. Adrian checked his watch. Landon's probably explaining that narrative right now. How the disgraced CTO working as a janitor enacted his revenge. Above them, through ventilation shafts, Elias heard sirens. Multiple vehicles, getting closer. "But here's the beautiful part," Adrian continued. "I'll disappear again. New identity, new fortune from shorting the market during the crash. While you'll be exactly where you were 5 years ago. Ruined, blamed, alone." "Not alone." Renata's voice cut through the garage. She emerged from behind a pillar, Margaret Walsh and Webb flanking her. Behind them, a full SEC enforcement team spread out, weapons drawn. "Parking garages have terrible acoustics," she said, but Margaret's tablet picked up every word. Adrian's smile faltered. "You can't be here. I was watching the feeds." "You were watching what we wanted you to see." Webb stepped forward. 20 years in security teaches you about false feeds and backup cameras." The SEC team leader, a woman with steel in her voice, spoke into her radio. "Confirmation on identity. Adrian Wolf, federal warrant number 779 Alpha. Verified alive. All units converge." "This recording," Margaret held up her tablet, "shows confession to securities fraud, market manipulation, faking death to avoid federal prosecution, and conspiracy to commit financial terrorism." Adrian backed toward his car. "You don't understand. The market crash. It's still happening. Only I can stop it." "No," Elias said quietly. Only Prometheus can stop it. And I built Prometheus. He pulled out his phone, showing code streaming across the screen. The kill switch wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Every Prometheus installation is now updating with a new protocol, one that identifies and isolates manipulation patterns, one that protects instead of destroys. Impossible. That would require Alpha Prime clearance. Elias smiled for the first time in 5 years. The SEC never actually revoked mine. They suspended it. And an hour ago, Director Chen here requested its emergency reactivation. Director Chen? Adrian's face went white. Renata straightened. Board vote was unanimous. They wanted leadership that could handle this crisis. Turns out, hiring a janitor who understands advanced algorithms was exactly the qualification they were looking for. Adrian lunged for his car. The SEC team moved like choreographed dancers, blocking, surrounding, containing. But Adrian had one last gambit. His phone flew from his hand, landing at Elias's feet. The hospital, he gasped as handcuffs clicked. Eliza's surgery. One call to cancel. Already handled, Webb interrupted. Turns out the head of pediatric surgery is my cousin. Small world. She's expecting Eliza Monday morning. Insurance pre-approved thanks to Safeguard's Employee Emergency Fund, which I established, Renata added, about an hour ago. The fight drained from Adrian like code compiling. This wasn't defeat. It was systematic dismantling. Every contingency countered, every escape route blocked. You know what your problem was? Elias asked, kneeling beside his former partner. You never understood why I built Prometheus. It wasn't about control or power. It was about protection, keeping markets fair so regular people with sick daughters and impossible bills, had a chance. Adrian's laugh came out bitter. You always were too noble for your own good. Maybe. But I'm not alone anymore. As the SEC led Adrian away, his last words echoed off concrete. This isn't over, Elias. You know it isn't over. Elias watched the elevator doors close on 5 years of nightmares. Around him, the team dispersed, professionals finishing professional work. But Renata remained, along with Webb and Margaret. The markets? He asked. Stabilizing, Margaret reported. Your patch is working. Manipulation isolated, legitimate trades resuming. We'll see recovery by morning. Landon, in custody, Webb said, singing like a bird about Adrian's promises. Turns out he really thought he'd get rich. Elias's phone buzzed. A message from Mrs. Rodriguez. Eliza was asleep, drawing pad beside her. Newest picture showing Daddy in a suit standing tall. Monday morning, Renata said quietly. Your daughter's surgery. You'll be there? I'll be there. Good. Tuesday morning, I need my CTO in the office. The real one this time. Elias looked at her, this woman who'd trusted a janitor with her empire. I don't own a suit. We'll figure something out. She smiled. After all, you figured out how to save the market with a mop bucket. A wardrobe should be simple. As they walked toward the elevator, leaving the garage and its ghosts behind, Webb asked, What will you tell Eliza about who you really are? Elias thought of her drawing, of promises to a dying wife, of 2 years pretending to be less than he was. The truth, he said finally, that her daddy fixes things, just not always the way people expect. The elevator rose toward light and possibility. Somewhere in the city, algorithms hummed their protective songs. Somewhere, a little girl slept peacefully, her surgery scheduled, her future secured. And in the reflection of polished steel doors, Elias Thorne saw himself clearly for the first time in 5 years. Not a janitor, not a disgrace, not a victim. A father who'd kept his promise. The surgery waiting room smelled of hope and industrial coffee. Elias sat in an actual chair, not cleaning one, just sitting, watching Monday morning paint Seattle Children's Hospital in gentle light. 7 hours since they'd wheeled Eliza into surgery. 7 hours of remembered promises and silent prayers. His phone buzzed with market updates. Safeguard stock had recovered, trending higher as news spread of the attempted manipulation's failure. The financial press was calling it the Prometheus Protocol, the first successful defense against algorithmic warfare. Other companies were calling, wanting their own protection. The SEC had approved 3 emergency implementations already. What started as destruction had become preservation. Mr. Thorne. Dr. Patterson appeared in surgical scrubs, exhaustion mixed with satisfaction on her face. The procedure went perfectly. She's in recovery, asking for you. The world crystallized into that single moment. Everything else, Adrian's arrest, Landon's confession, the CTO position waiting Tuesday morning, faded against those words. Can I see her? Of course. She's been quite insistent about showing you her latest drawing. Eliza looked small in the hospital bed, but her eyes sparkled with the same determination that had carried her through 2 years of illness. The drawing pad lay across her lap, colored pencils scattered like rainbow ammunition. Daddy. Her voice, though hoarse, carried joy. Did you see the news? They caught the bad man who was stealing money. I heard something about that. She held up her newest drawing. 2 figures stood in front of a building, one tall in a suit, one small in a hospital gown. Both wore capes. That's us, she explained. Both heroes. You save companies, I beat the sick. Elias traced the drawing with one finger, throat tight. We make a good team. The best. She yawned, medication pulling her back toward sleep. Daddy, you're not really just a janitor, are you? He smoothed her hair, remembering her mother's in the same gesture. No, baby, but I learned something important being one. What's that? That cleaning up messes is noble work, whether it's with a mop or a computer. She smiled, eyes closing. Mrs. Rodriguez said you used to build things that protect people. Will you do that again? Yes. Good. The world needs protecting. A pause. And Daddy, next time you save everyone, you don't have to hide it. Heroes should stand in the light. As she drifted into healing sleep, Elias held her hand and thought about algorithms and justice, about visible and invisible work, about the price of staying hidden versus the cost of standing tall. Tuesday morning brought a different kind of new beginning. Elias stood before Safeguard's building, wearing a suit that felt like recovered armor. The same doors he'd pushed through with a mop bucket now open to executive access. Second thoughts? Renata appeared beside him, coffee in hand. About the suit? Constantly. About the job, Elias. He watched the morning shift arrive. Analysts, administrators, security guards, janitors, each playing their part in the financial ecosystem. I spent 2 years watching from the edges, he said, seeing how things really work when you're not in the boardroom. I don't want to forget those lessons. Then don't. She handed him a key card. Full access, no restrictions, build us something better. Inside, the trading floor hummed with controlled energy. The same screens that had shown collapse now displayed steady growth. The Prometheus protocol ran quietly in the background. Guardian Angel in code. Webb met them at the elevator. Adrian's looking at 20 to life. Real time, real prison. No disappearing act this time. And the others? The families who lost money? Recovery proceedings started. Insurance claims approved. Your algorithm identified every stolen dollar. They'll be made whole. The elevator rose toward the executive floor. Through glass walls, Elias glimpsed the city waking up. Somewhere, a single father was dropping his daughter at school before his shift. Somewhere, a CEO was checking markets over breakfast. Somewhere, invisible work was becoming visible in small, vital ways. The CTO office hadn't been used since Safeguard's last tech chief retired. Boxes of outdated manuals, dust on surfaces that once held servers' weight. Another space that needed cleaning, rebuilding, purposing. I want to implement something, Elias said, standing at the window. A program for employees facing medical crises. Not just insurance, but support. No one should have to choose between their child's health and their integrity. Draft the proposal. Board meets Thursday. And I want transparency protocols. Every algorithm, every trading pattern open to audit. If we're asking for trust, we need to show we deserve it. That's radical for this industry. Good. A knock interrupted. Marcus Webb entered with a gift, a small potted plant and a card signed by the custodial staff. Welcome back to visibility. The card read, from those who see everything. Elias placed the plant on his desk. This small green life among the technology. A reminder of growth, of tending, of patient work, yielding results. One more thing, he told Renata. I want to teach. Not just build systems, but train people to understand them. From executives to entry level. Everyone should know how their world really works. She smiled. You know what? That's exactly what a good CTO would say. As morning meetings beckoned and responsibilities multiplied, Elias thought about Eliza's drawing. Heroes standing in the light. He'd spent 5 years in shadow, 2 in deliberate invisibility. Now came the harder task, using visibility wisely. Because somewhere in the city, another parent was struggling. Another company was vulnerable. Another algorithm was being corrupted for greed. But also, somewhere, people were building protections, writing code for justice, choosing integrity over ease. The Prometheus protocol spread across markets like an immune system awakening. Not perfect, not invulnerable, but present, watching, protecting. And in a hospital room across town, a 7-year-old girl was healing, dreaming of the day she'd build her own protections, her own protocols for making the world safer. Heroes, Elias had learned, came in many forms. Some wore capes, some wore suits, and some, the most important ones, wore whatever was needed to get the work done. Standing in his new office, surrounded by old challenges and new possibilities, Elias Thorne began to code. The real work was just beginning.